How is everyone doing? Welcome back to another episode of The Banker Next Door. I am your host, Dr. Joe Berquist. Today, we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic. I wanted to talk about SNAP and the American welfare system, as it were. We had some very interesting developments during the government shutdown where a lot of fraud in the SNAP program was exposed. And now the question becomes, okay, now that we know that there's an issue here with the SNAP program, what's going to be done about it? So we're going to take a look at three particular articles today where we're going to look at the growth of the welfare state, and we're going to look at some statistics on the SNAP program and overall government welfare in general. We're also going to look at what was some of the fraud that was detected, and we're going to take a look at what is the end result of all this, at least for the moment. So let's jump into a couple of these articles here real quick. So the first one here, let's talk about the fraud for a second. So 5,000 dead people getting SNAP, with 500,000 receiving the benefits twice. So the agricultural secretary also said that if some SNAP benefits were cut off, more illegal immigrants would self-deport. So the secretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture said in a recent interview with the department found that 500,000 people are registered twice for supplemental nutrition assistance programs, otherwise known as SNAP benefits, and that more than 5,000 deceased people have also been receiving the benefit. So, in an interview on November 12th with Fox News, Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins said that SNAP is one of the most corrupt, dysfunctional programs in U.S. history. She said that 80% of people using the program are able to work, and cited the investigation that found that thousands of people are registered twice in the program. They choose not to work because taxpayers are footing the bill, she added, saying that very big announcements will be coming soon. Rollins made the comments as SNAP benefits known as food stamps faced setbacks and legal wrangling during the government shutdown that ended on November 12th. She also suggested that if some SNAP benefits are cut off, more illegal immigrants will self deport, which she said would change the outcome of the census. Earlier in the month, as SNAP benefits were suspended, Rollins described massive fraud in the system, noting that the fraud was discovered only in states that had cooperated with a prior investigation. She said that 21 states refused to hand over their SNAP data to the Department of the Government Efficiency, which was established by the Trump administration earlier this year. After the shutdown ended, the USDA, which runs the program, issued new guidance on November 13, saying that state agencies must take immediate steps to ensure households receive their full November allotments promptly. The reduction in maximum allotments for November is no longer in effect, it stated. State agencies should immediately resume issuing combined allotments for November and December for newly certified applicants who apply after the 15th of the month. Officials with the USDA said that because households that received SNAP didn't get a full month of benefits and faced uncertainty, the department sent instructions to states to not issue countable months for time limited participants for November 2025, and to resume normal procedures for countable months beginning in December of 2025. The federal food program is used by about 42 million people, about 1 in 8 Americans in lower income households. They receive an average of $190 monthly per person. In some states where SNAP recipients received nothing in November, officials said they are working to load money into people's electronic benefits cards by Friday, if not sooner. Um, this has been difficult for our beneficiaries, and we are incredibly appreciative to our partners across the state to help bridge the gap through food pantries, donation drives, and other assistance efforts, said the Department of State Janet Mann. Officials in West Virginia, which also had not issued November benefits, said the full monthly amount should be available by November 14th. And Alabama said full SNAP benefits should be issued by November 13th. So, that being said, okay, we've discovered all this fraud. We also discovered that a very large portion of people on SNAP benefits are considered illegal immigrants. That in and of itself, that one disclosure, it was a massive, basically, bomb that got dropped on the American people. Now, what is happening here in the short run? So let's take a look at this article. So all SNAP recipients required to reapply as Trump administration cracks down on fraud. Business as usual is over. So stolen benefits cost the government more than 102 million in the first quarter of fiscal year 2025. So Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins basically said Monday, and this was from what date? What date is it? November 17th. This is from November 17th. So Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins said Monday the Trump administration will require all participants in the nation's largest food assistance program to reapply for benefits in the effort to prevent fraud. Recipients of the Supplemental Nutrition Program, SNAP, which supports more than 40 million Americans, will need to demonstrate that their households still meet eligibility requirements to continue receiving benefits. Rollins said SNAP, meant to be a lifeline for low-income households, was among the first priorities she targeted for review, citing concerns about eligibility and oversight. Business as usual is over. The status quo is no more, Rollins said during an interview on Mornings with Maria. Rollins said she ordered states to share data on recipients shortly after taking office in February, describing the system as rife with fraud but lacking hard evidence. She added that so far, only 29 states, mostly Republican-led, have complied with the request. Rollins said that even that limited data has already revealed significant misuse, with 186,000 deceased individuals receiving benefits and 500,000 people receiving SNAP benefits in more than one state. Data from the Department of Agriculture indicates that more than 226,000 fraudulent benefit claims and more than 691,000 fraudulent transactions received approval. Fraudulent transactions refer to purchases that SNAP households did not authorize, often caused by card skimming, card cloning, or other forms of electronic theft. Here we have a little chart here for the fiscal year. Like I said, fraudulent claims, and this is for fiscal year 2025 for the first quarter. I mean, again, 226,000 that were approved. Again, fraudulent transactions, 691,000 plus. So that's pretty crazy. So the stolen benefits cost the government more than 102 million in the first quarter of fiscal year 2025, up from 69 million the previous quarter and 31.9 million during the same period a year earlier. In a prior interview earlier this month with Fox and Friends Weekend, Rollins said that her investigators also found thousands and thousands of illegal uses of the electronic benefits card, the EBT card. She added that so far the Trump administration has removed about 700,000 people off SNAP and arrested about 118 people. What's more, the USDA says about 41.7 million Americans, or 1 in 8 people, rely on SNAP benefits each month. The highest share of beneficiaries live in New Mexico, Washington, D.C., and Louisiana, followed by Oregon, according to USDA data. Again, here you kind of see this chart here, percentage of U.S. population receiving SNAP benefits in 2024. And then another good chart here, how many Americans rely on SNAP and what it costs the federal government. So we can see here that basically about 41 million Americans rely on SNAP, costing in 2024 about $100 billion. I actually think it's more than that. We're going to see this in just a second. So let's go over to this other article here. Now, this is going to give us some real data and some better charts here to look at through this article. So SNAP and the growth of the American welfare state. So current spending on all welfare programs as a percentage of gross domestic product is 12 times higher than it was in 1962. Now, obviously, we remember, in the 60s, after the assassination of President Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson got into office and became president of the United States. And one of Lyndon's big initiatives was what he called his Great Society. And we saw through Lyndon this massive expansion of the welfare state for the first time. And it has only continued to grow since then. So the SNAP has unexpectedly taken center stage in debates over the federal government shutdown. Since funding for the program, formerly known as food stamps, ran out in October, Congress, President Donald Trump, and the federal courts have wrestled with what to do about feeding millions of Americans who depend on this benefit each month. SNAP has grown in size and cost since its inception in 1964, and have many other social welfare programs. Here's a closer look at this. So, participation in SNAP has grown dramatically over the past 50 years. About 2% of Americans received SNAP benefits in 1970, according to data from the Department of Agriculture. Today, about 13% of Americans receive SNAP benefits, some 42 million Americans. That is a 650% increase in the number of Americans who are unable to provide adequate food for themselves. Participation spiked by 69% between 2008 and 2013. Gee, I wonder who was president. From 2008 to 2013. Oh, that's right, Obama. reaching a high of more than 45 million monthly recipients, largely because of the nationwide recession. According to the USDA, between 2007 and 2009, national unemployment averaged 9.3%. Yeah, that's part of it. I think there is a much more sinister plan afoot, if you will, but let's leave that aside for the moment. Average monthly SNAP participants, fiscal year 1969 through 2025. Again, you can see that just this absolute explosion here, over the last 50 years. I mean, just, 1994, we get up to 27 million. We reach our peak in 2013 at 47.64 million. It comes down a little bit more here. Notice when President Trump first gets into office, 2017, we have a massive decrease from 42 million down to 35.7 million. So we get about 7 million people off food stamps and through the most part of President Trump's first term. But then obviously the COVID kicks in 2020, and we jump right back up to 41.6 million. Kind of get back to 40, and we're still sitting at 42 million, only slightly below the 40, about 5 million below the 47 million peak in 2013. But still, I mean, this is a huge number. Participation rates vary, but New Mexico is the state with the highest participation rate at 21.2% of the population, and Utah has the lowest rate at 4.8%. The participation rate for many states mirrors their poverty rate. Some states have exceptionally high or low rates of SNAP participation compared with the rate of poverty. Outliers on the high side are Arkansas, Massachusetts, Oregon, and Wyoming. On the low side, Georgia's SNAP participation rate is 12.5%, while its poverty rate is 12.6%. So again, looking at another great chart here, we can see, the high states here: New Mexico, District of Columbia, Oregon, Massachusetts, California, New York, California, Illinois, Rhode Island. Again, I see a lot of Democrat states in here. I don't think that is an accident. I do not think that is by accident. Spending. So SNAP spending has undergone two surges, reaching annual costs of more than 100 billion in 2024. Spending shot up by 112% between 2008 and 2013, coinciding with the surge in enrollment. SNAP costs went up by another 98% during the COVID-19 pandemic era, when personal benefits amounts increased by 77%. According to the Epoch Times analysis by USDA data, there is a 300% increase in 20 years, compared with an overall 50% increase in enrollment. And then you can see here SNAP costs and benefits in current dollars. So annual costs in billions of dollars, about 100 billion. And then average monthly benefit per person is about $187 per person, per month. But again, you see this staggering growth in welfare, and this is highly troublesome. We've basically instituted a almost like a permanent welfare state in the country, and that is highly troubling. States with higher populations generally receive a larger share of SNAP benefits. California tops the list, receiving more than 1 billion per month, followed by New York at 647 million, Texas at 614 million, and Florida at 535 million. Alaska and Hawaii both receive nearly double the average SNAP benefit per person at $364 and $361 per month, respectively. Beneficiaries in New York, $218, Massachusetts, $216, and Tennessee, $203, receive the highest monthly average among the 48 continuous states. So, and then it talks about incorrect payments, supplemental nutrition assistance program payment error rates in fiscal year. Obviously, you can see over the last 3 fiscal years, we've really had an increase in the, basically in the error rates or potential fraud rates going on here. And then SNAP payment errors by state in fiscal year 2024. You can see obviously Georgia, Florida, New Mexico, Oregon, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, or I shouldn't say Connecticut, New Jersey, Maryland, some of the higher states here with some of the highest ones going on there. Obviously, a lot of fraud in the program, which, and then work requirements. So there are about 4 million people on food stamps that are called able-bodied adults without dependents. Congress changed the program's work requirement rule in July. States are now implementing new guidelines to comply with the changes. So, able bodied adults without dependents are required to work, volunteer, or take part in training for at least 20 hours per week or 80 hours per month to maintain their SNAP benefits. Older people are granted an exemption from this requirement, but the age limit for the exemption is increasing from 54 to 64. Generally, people ages 18 through 64 must meet their requirement to receive SNAP benefits for more than 3 months in any 36-month period. Work can be something done in exchange for money, goods, or services. And then, of course, talks about the growth of the social programs. President Lyndon Johnson introduced his vision to build a great society for the American people in 1963. Over the next several years, Congress passed the landmark legislation regarding social welfare programs that are still in place, including Medicare, Medicaid, and food stamps. Those programs have been expanded over the years, and others have been added, including temporary assistance for needy families, the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for women, infants, and children, federal housing assistance, and student loans and grants. Federal spending on all social welfare programs measured as a percentage of gross domestic product rose from 0.27% in 1962 to 3.8% in 2024. That is an increase of more than 1,250%. The federal poverty level fell by about 50% between 1962 and 2000, but it remains at about 11% today. And we can see this, total spending on welfare programs as a percentage of GDP from fiscal year 1962 to 2025. And we can just see this massive increase here over the last, 60 years in this program. So I wanted to point this out because, I wanted to point out that there is obviously on the surface, there are some severe problems with this program. It's rife with a lot of fraud. There are obviously people that are out there abusing this system. There are able-bodied people, roughly about 4 million able-bodied people on the SNAP welfare benefits that basically shouldn't be on there. You have a lot of illegal immigrants on SNAP. I mean, we don't know. I don't know that we could say exactly what the number is of that, but we know it's a very high percentage, meaning very high, meaning it's probably over 30%. That obviously that should be a just an absolute non-starter, an absolute no from the word go. I mean, American taxpayers are really getting abused here with this program, and this is why I point this out. I mean, one of the things, it is very difficult to have a functioning society when you have 1 in 8 Americans on this have been basically entered into this permanent welfare state. And again, I understand that you have poverty. I understand that people need these benefits, and I'm all for that, but at the same time, people also need, I think we all is also very good from time to time to check in on this stuff, to look at these actual statistics and see this and recognize that there is a massive problem here, that there should not be this many people on welfare in America. We should not have this. We should not have this permanent welfare state. Um, again, these programs were designed to be a helping hand to people, not to be a lifestyle. It should not be a lifestyle choice to get onto welfare and stay on welfare forever. Um, but again, you have a lot of politics at play with this too. I'm not going to get into all of that, but like I said, I just wanted to point this out, and I think this is a real issue, and I think it really needs to be addressed. I think this really needs a deep dive. I hope this does not conveniently fall off the political radar. Obviously, Democrats would love for this to just get off the front page and go away. But I hope it doesn't, and I hope there's a lot more investigation here, and we'll see what happens on this one. So, but like I said, that being said, I'll wrap up by saying if you like this episode, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, as that always helps the channel. Remember, we are on YouTube, Rumble, and all major podcast platforms. Please be sure to leave your comments down below, as I would love to hear back from people on this particular issue. And as always, make sure to check out some of the other content on the channel. I thank you for listening. I hope everyone has a great day out there, and I will see you again real soon.